Sidechain compression is the most powerful and easy tool to add and enhance energy. And this is a must-know tool when working with rhythmic music. Sidechain compression is when we are controlling the dynamics, aka the energy, with another source than the original input source. It can be filtering the input source, for example the high or low cut, but we can also use external sources, which we are going to do today. So the first example, which is the most classic example, and I think you should do this too. In this example, you're gonna make space for the bass drum and add energy by adding a sidechain compressor to the bass. When doing sidechain, we need a fast compressor, and the Ableton built-in compressor is just perfect for this purpose. So I'm adding this to the bass track, and I'm expanding my settings, activating sidechain, audio from 808 kit, and I'm also going to select the bass drum. Let's go through the different knobs. Ratio, I don't think this is very important, so I will just leave it at 4:1, which I think is a perfect ratio. We're going to use peak compression because this is the most aggressive compression and we really want to control some energy. The next thing we're going to control is the threshold, which is how much we want to compress. So let's turn on the music and let's try. And again, we're gonna amplify the bass drum by doing this. So I think this is a good threshold. Let's try with and without. So suddenly the bass drum gets audible. The two next knobs is the attack and the release time. The attack I just try to get as fast as possible. So how I do is that I just turn it down until I start hearing artifacts. You can hear the click, the transient is even gets through the sidechain compressor now, which isn't a bad thing, but I just like to only have my transient on my drum. So 40. I want the attack as fast as possible to add more energy, but also to add space for the transient of our sidechaining source. For example, if we have a very slow attack time, then it won't get to turn down the volume of our bass before the transient of the kick drum has been there. So what is the transient? The transient is the first sound. And the first sound is of course really fast, and that's why we want the sidechain compressor to act really fast. So my default is just to have it as fast as possible. And now we can actually kind of feel the bass drum even though it's muted, and it's just this thing about energy. Fast release sounds more transparent, and if you want a bigger impact, more energy, then use a longer release. But always try it out, listen. I think this is the most artistic knob on the sidechain compressor. From fast to slow. Now it's getting so slow that it doesn't get to go back to not compressing. But again, as you can hear, the bass drum starts to kick even more. But this, I would say, is a slower release time, and here it really sounds like the bass drum is louder. And then let's go back to a very fast. bass drum is still louder than without the compressor, but it doesn't impact the bass as much. Okay, so ratio, just set it to 4:1 because it really doesn't matter that much. Threshold decides how much compression you want. Attack, try to set it as fast as possible without any artifacts, and then mess around with the release time until you think it sounds groovy, or until you get this feeling that you actually want to achieve. But play around with it. I really took it to the extreme in this example because I could of course also turn up the volume of the bass drum. But try to do this for yourself and really experiment and try all the different knobs out. Make a bass and add a bass drum, turn it down so it's almost not audible, and then use sidechain compressing to make it audible. By doing this, you will really get a good insight into how sidechain compression works. And when you have made a preset that you like, you could copy paste this preset to, for example, if you have a pad, a synthesizer pad, or anything that really is static sounding, because it will just add some movement to it. The next example I really love is to sidechain the hi-hat with the bass drum. What I do is that I go and select my core kit. I choose my closed hi-hat, which is the one that I want to sidechain. I add the compressor. And just like before, I go to expand mode, or what we should call it. I activate sidechain, I select the core kit, and I want to be sure that I only select the bass drum, like this. And just like before, I use the threshold. And let's turn the attack down. And now we just got movement to the hi-hat. We can play around with the release time. I really like it here. There's no true answer to how it should sound, so it's just about playing around until you like it. But with and without, with, without. So it's just an extremely easy way of adding some movement, some energy, and just, yeah, I think it just sounds extremely cool. You can also add this to other hi-hat-ish sounds, like a strumming guitar or a shaker or whatever. Another way of using sidechain compression is to add movement energy with a ghost track. So I made this triplet ghost track. And I will select master to synths only, which just means that it isn't being sent through the master or any other output. So we have this piano, which has like this huge reverb. And what I want to do is to add the compressor and give it some movement, some texture. So again, I will choose my input to be the ghost drums, and just like before, I will just add this fast. Choose the threshold. So now we got some movement. I will choose peak. And have a bit. So let's listen to it all. Let's go back and solo the bass and add a new compressor and mute the old one, because we have peak RMS and expander. So let's go to expander mode. And again, we will choose sidechain from the chord kit, which is our main drum. We will choose only the bass drum, because we only want it to be affected by the bass drum. And then we'll just set the ratio as high as possible. Now it's 1:2 instead of 4:1, because now we want it to expand. But let's try it out and you'll see. So now we are using the chord kit to transfer the energy into the bass, so the bass kind of acts like the bass drum also. Let's try with a faster attack. Now it starts to kick even more. With a longer release. So now we can transfer the energy from the bass drum into the bass. And for me, it's just a really nice example of what sidechain compression can do. So it's all about that energy. So sit down and play around with sidechain compression. Begin with making the bass and the bass drum exercise, because that's just really shows you how it works, and then just start to use it with all of your music, because this is a really important trick to know. Energy is when there is movement, no matter if it's up or down. So turning down a signal adds energy. If you like this video, then please hit the thumbs up button and consider to subscribe to my channel. It would truly make me happy.